All right, guys, this is Tony. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful Wednesday evening. And I'm just going to go ahead and kick this off. Tonight is about wheat and sugar. And cleaning up, breaking that sugar addiction is very powerful. The research is clear that sugar is not only the root cause of our obesity epidemic, but almost all chronic diseases out there. And if you'll remember from the disease delusion presentation, the chronic illnesses I'm talking about are the ones that kind of drain and suck the life out of us over time. They start, with symptoms like aches and pains and soreness and headache. That's arthritis, heart disease, dementia, type 2 diabetes, depression, even acne, things like infertility, impotence, and things like that. Sugar is without a doubt one of the most powerful pro-inflammatory agents, meaning causing inflammation in our diet today. It causes inflammation, and inflammation is the hallmark of chronic illness. So remember, very acute, short-term inflammation we absolutely have to heal, but that chronic inflammation, it damages our body. So if you'll remember with the immune system, the way it responds is with inflammation, right? Friend or foe. So it responds with inflammation, and then you get those subsequent symptoms that I just mentioned. And so many people want that diagnosis. They want an answer. But, lots of times those symptoms they happen before you're ever able to label it with the name of a disease. So like I said, you're sore, you ache, your feet hurt maybe, you have breakouts on your skin, you've got headaches, things like that. So the great news is that we can turn those things around. We can turn those symptoms around so you never have to get a diagnosis. And even if you have a diagnosis, we can turn those things around. So you don't we're going to talk next week, I think it is. I was trying to look at the agenda. So obviously we do this primarily through, what we put in our mouth, our food. That's why we've talked so much about that. But also, movement, supplements, stress, and that's all of the things that we're going to talk about next week. So on that call next Tuesday. So anyways, back to sugar. Okay, in 1900, the average American consumed less than 10 pounds of sugar per person per year. Now, the average American consumes about 152 pounds of sugar per person per year. So I just want you to wrap your heads around that. 10 pounds to 152 pounds per person per year. So that's roughly 22 teaspoons every day for every person in America. We don't even think about it, because it's infused in everything. Virtually, I think we did a detox a couple years ago when we were at one of our conferences, one of the IFM, the functional medicine conferences, and we found that it was announced that only one kind of turkey at Whole Foods doesn't have added sugar. So even your turkey and things like that, people just don't really think about what all sugar comes in. They think it's cookies, cakes, and candies, and it's really in almost everything. So our kids consume about 34 teaspoons every day. So that's more than 2 20-ounce sodas, making nearly 1 in 4 teenagers pre-diabetic. So 20 years ago, it was only kind of this old person's disease. We never saw it in kids, never heard of it, and that's not the case anymore, just 20 years later. So that is very frightening. So if you really want to kind of wrap your brain around this, if you have kids, I've done this with my kids, do an experiment where you actually look at or do it for yourself, where you actually look at the sugar label on a yogurt or a soda pop, for example, and work through that converting those sugars from grams to teaspoon. And I'm going to tell you what that is, but then get a bowl out and literally measure how much sugar is in that particular item by putting the sugar in a bowl to really see it with your eyes. So you can't unlearn this. That's a great way to do that when you're about to drink a pop, or, fill that up with how many teaspoons of sugar and think, would I actually, is this feeding my body, or is it fighting the disease? So that's a great question to ask every time you drink or eat. And, you shouldn't be getting that much sugar from your drinks anyway. That's an easy way to get sugar out. But the grams to sugar, so 4 grams is equal to 1 teaspoon of sugar. So if you turn that yogurt around or turn that pop around, for example, and it has 40 grams of sugar, that's 10 teaspoons of sugar in that one pop. And as a daily goal or parameters, if you will, a female should not exceed 6 teaspoons of sugar, and a male should not exceed 9 teaspoons of sugar. So 1 pop a day, if you're a female or a male, you're getting more sugar in that 1 pop than you should have your entire day. That means like not even another cherry, for example, would have too much sugar in it. So we are impacted, tremendously as adults, as our children. So childhood obesity, a little note on that. Childhood obesity will have more impact on the life expectancy of children than all childhood cancers combined. This is actually the first generation of children expected to live shorter lifespans than their parents. So we're seeing 8-year-olds with diabetes. We're seeing 15-year-olds with strokes. We're seeing 25-year-olds, who need cardiac bypass. I mean, we're seeing young children with fatty liver from this kind of sugar, and it's really sad. And it really is in the inside of, the homes and the kitchens can make all of the difference. And flour is even worse. So we consume about 146 pounds of flour a year. So think about it. That's 1 pound of sugar and flour combined every day for every man, woman, and child in America. Flour raises blood sugar even more than table sugar, even whole wheat flour. So that I've mentioned this before on a call, but the glycemic index is a measure of the effects of carbohydrates in food on blood sugar levels. So I think most people know that like white breads, all the variety of white breads and bagels have a high glycemic index. Actually, it's higher than a Snickers bar, meaning when you eat them, they raise your blood sugar more than it would be raised eating a Snickers bar. So guess what? Eating 2 slices of whole grain or whole wheat bread does exactly the same thing, and that was a report done in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2002. So I just had somebody actually comment today. Buddy, I'm on the phone. No, I can't. In a minute. In 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry about that. My little one's home. This is why I do the calls on Tuesday night. But I just had somebody today worried about diabetes calling in wanting to look further into that, because she was noticing when she would do her blood pressure checks her blood glucose checks, that they would go significantly up after bread, obviously, but rice. And she was like, I had no idea. So sugar is actually 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And there was a study done on rats with cocaine water versus sugar water. So they took these rats and they gave them the option of drinking the cocaine water or the sugar water, and 100% of the time they chose the sugar water. And then they took it a step further, and they got them all addicted to the cocaine water, and then they offered them sugar water, and once again they all switched to the sugar water. And then they even added a little element of shock when they put a shock pad under the sugar water, and they continued, despite the pain, to drink the sugar water. So very, very powerful. It lights up that reward center, that nucleus accumbens in your brain, no differently than crack cocaine on MRI. So it lights up that addiction center. Being addicted to sugar and flour is not an emotional eating disorder. It's a biological disorder driven by hormones and neurotransmitters that really fuel those sugar and carb cravings, leading to uncontrolled overeating or just making the wrong choices when it comes to food. And this is, why I always say we're white-knuckling weight loss in America, because it doesn't work. And it's not our fault. I mean, they've literally infused this. I mean, I think that was in the 80s when they took all of the fat, because that was what was so bad, and they took it out and they discovered, geez, all our food really tastes like crap. And so what did they do? They turned around and they put tons and tons of sugar in it and made everybody essentially addicted to all the food. So because of all this, scientists actually estimate that 1 in 2 Americans will have some form of metabolic disorder, prediabetes, insulin resistance, obesity, diabetes, by 2020. And the scary thing is that 90% of them will be undiagnosed. And we see this all the time. You don't just wake up with diabetes. It's been going on for years before it's diagnosed. And we talked about that in the disease delusion, how just a simple blood sugar, you really need a lot more than that. By the time you have the blood sugar showing that, it's been going on for a long, long time. So I see this all the time. I used to go into people's homes and do assessments, and they would pull out their blood work, and they would show me a blood sugar of 114, and their physician had circled it and put okay by it. And I said, well, that's not okay. And I would go on to explain that that was prediabetes, and they would almost fall off the chair because they were told not to do anything differently. But think about it. If it's trending upward and you don't change anything, you're still on that trajectory, you're going to get diabetes at some point if nothing changes. But we can turn that around, and that's the good news. So remember in that, again, the disease delusion, we talked about upstream markers, so labs and other tests you can do long before something becomes a disease. So I had another lady who came in as a new patient, and she was just concerned. She seemed to be in decent health, and she had her labs and everything looked great, except for she had just a tiny bit elevated fasting glucose, and it was 103. And her doctor wasn't that concerned, and she was like, but I just have something in my gut, something's not right. Is there more that we can do? And so we went ahead and I did a little bit further in-depth testing. I got a fasting insulin. I like that, 12 or so and under, and hers was over 200. So before we could even within the next week, or I think it wasn't even 2 weeks, she stroked, and so we didn't even have really a chance to get off the ground with anything. But so you just never know. You can't just assume, I have the basic normal labs and just keep going along. Like I said, in that disease delusion is, those upstream markers are there for a reason. If your CRP is elevated, if your homocysteine is elevated, something's coming down the pike, and so we can head that off at the pass if we're just diligent enough to do so. And the way we do it is with food, and that's what we're talking about all month long. And then next week, like I said, supplements and stress and things like that. So again, just because, like you're getting this clean bill of health, wake up, understand we have the power, and we should be taking interest when it comes to our health. We are ultimately responsible for our health. It's, most of these things are 100% preventable and curable, and you're just not told about it. So I just want to congratulate all you guys on making this decision to make some changes. I've heard some amazing testimonials, and I couldn't be more proud of you and happy. So continue, doing your shakes, doing your supplements, continue eating this low allergen, low inflammatory elimination plan that we're on. Drink lots of water, get lots of rest, work to, decrease your stress, which we'll be talking about. Continue reviewing your meal plans, planning your meals. That's, a huge part of this is just being, planning and preparing, what we've talked about the whole time. Keeping that why and, of course, the what you are eating at the forefront of your mind. Print out those phytonutrient documents, have them ready, refer back to them. It's no different than any other kind of self-development. We've got to, a runner doesn't go run a marathon without having, ran a mile. And in order to keep running, you have to keep practicing. And that's no different than this. We have to keep just putting one foot in front of the other and being committed to learning. And remember that habits are made by doing little things each day. This doesn't have to wake up and just be, I'm going to be perfect in one day. This is a journey. So also remember that earlier in the day you make healthy choices. That actually helps you make better choices throughout the rest of the day. So some resources, if you want to hear, we could go on and on about why wheat and gluten aren't, good for you and that sort of thing. It would be a whole another several-hour call. But if you're interested in learning more about what's changed and why are people getting off of wheat and gluten and what is this all about, A good resource, two of them actually, Wheat Belly by Dr. William Davis, who's a cardiologist, has done a ton of research, and it really gets to the root of the problem, what's changed and that sort of thing. It's an easy read. It's enjoyable. And the other one is Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter, who is a functional medicine neurologist. That's a fantastic book. Dr. Perlmutter is amazing. He speaks at our conferences at Functional Medicine. It's more about what wheat and gluten does to your body, your brain, how it causes inflammation, and so forth. Both of those are amazing reads. So just love yourself. Tell yourself that you're worth it. And keep going. And really, that's it. There's no secret or silver bullet about it, just planning and preparing like we've talked about and knowing that you're worth it. You all deserve to feel good, both mentally and physically. So just keep putting one foot in front of the other and continuing to make good choices every day. And just know that there's a ton of research out there about how food drives mood. So, there are going to be times when you make some not so good choices, and then that almost gets you in that sort of slump, or it's that just keeps going around and around and around because food drives mood, and so you eat crappy food, and then you feel bad, and then you keep doing it, and you just need to break that cycle. So hopefully that's what this month is doing. And our next call is going to be June 17th. Again, movement, sleep, stress, and environment. It'll be the same call, same time. It will be on the Tuesday night. I just had to reschedule this one. I'll send out another reminder and any documentation with that as it gets closer. Our Facebook page is a great resource. Reach out, ask questions, post comments. The more you use it, the more you'll get out of it. Multiple people posting stuff. We've got some amazing people in the group. It's super helpful. That knowledge of the group is very powerful. So let's all lean on each other. Just that final reminder, this will be the last reminder, for anybody who, if you have anybody to refer to the program, for February, that product promo is at the discounted price through January 15th, which I believe is this Sunday. So if anybody's interested in that, just let me know. All right, guys and gals, that's it for tonight. I will talk to you next Tuesday, and in the meantime, we'll be talking on Facebook. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and if you're in Kansas City, I hope you all survive the ice storm that I hear is coming this weekend. All right, guys, have a good night. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.